Welcome back to the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy, Mike C-Roc. I want to thank you today for being here and listening and joining the movement. The Waymo movement is real. It's global. And I'm just so thankful to have you being a part of that, supporting us, and also spreading the word of the mission. And it makes a big deal to me to start off the show every day with gratitude. And I want to welcome our guest today, Joel Oleson. Speaking of global, Joel Oleson's got some stories to tell about going global. Joel, who we have here today, spent 10 years at Microsoft across the technology and marketing departments, developing a deep passion for travel and culture. He was awarded top technology influencer and Microsoft MVP as a writer, speaker, and influencer. In his travels and adventures, he has visited every corner of the globe in his quest to visit every country with a handful of countries left. He seeks to inspire like-minded, aspiring travelers seeking the next adventure and wants to connect and share. Currently, at this point right now, Joel is a director. And what is the name of the company? Because my email's acting up.
Perficient.
Perficient. And he's also a director in the Microsoft program currently. So Joel, welcome to the show. Welcome to the What Are You Made Of podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here. It's great to be with all your listeners as well. It's great community. Love the passion, the energy. Like it's raw. It's great. Love it.
Thank you, man. And this story started when I was 11 years old, and it's a story of being given up on and rising from that with resilience and coming back to help other people that have been through certain similar situations. That's what the show is all about. The rule number one we have of this, the dominating rule of Waymo, is to turn all setbacks, letdowns, anything that appears negative that you go through in your life into rocket fuel for your future. And once you understand that everything that you go through is a training session for your future, your life will never be the same. You'll handle things way better and produce at such high levels that you could ever imagine before. So with that being said, what we want to know today, Joel, is what are you made of?
All right. You know, I loved your story about talking about when you were a kid. I was that kid with the big ears, freckles, strawberry blonde, red hair, so many jokes, so many picked on. I was Dumbo, I was Mickey Mouse. I actually went through a lot of that, when you bring up childhood stories. And there was even a time I remember being on the bus and these kids were kicking me, and I was down on the ground in the bus with people on both sides just kicking me. And I was thinking, what is my life going to be? How am I going to rise above this? And what do you do with this? And it's so much anger, so much resentment, and
all because you didn't grow into your ears.
Yeah. My ears came in first.
You hadn't grown into your ears at that point.
That's right. That's right.
So silly. Yeah. And listen, I hopped around a lot as a kid to different schools, and a lot of times I was a minority. At the first place I was with in elementary school, there was a lot of Hispanic, Latino kids, and I fit right in. I was speaking Spanish at that time a little bit, and then I moved to the next school, and I wasn't around Latinos anymore. And it was more African American kids and white kids. And I felt like I was a minority at that point. I'm Italian, but I spoke a little Spanish, and I come to a new school, and it feels like every time I hopped to a different school, I'd have to get beat in, so to speak. It was a weird thing, and I'd get jumped. But the one thing that changed me, and I don't know if you went through this at all, and since you brought this up, I want to say this, but I got jumped by 6 guys one time. And the last time it happened, I grabbed onto one of them, and I said, this isn't happening again. And no, I don't fight anymore, but I got into, like you said, there was a lot of anger, resentment from the stuff that I went through as a kid. And then to come into somewhere and trying to have a great attitude and be a part of something and then getting beat up, you don't know how to react to that. Yeah. So I reacted by trying to get one and handling one of the 6, so to speak. And maybe they would, and it worked. And then from there on, they didn't mess with you anymore because they knew that it ain't worth it. Yeah. That's how I handled it. How did you handle that? I mean, what was your response at that time?
Through elementary school, it was a lot of just keep going. I did have a problem with the school bus, so I ended up walking to school. So you could say that I did end up kind of getting a bunch of energy because I was walking back and forth to school, especially to kindergarten. And then even when it was elementary school, I used to ride a friend's bus. So at least I had an ally. Right. And I think that friends are so important. It is your network. and I've kind of figured that out at an early age too, is like, you know, and it was, I think one of the things I learned in elementary school too was like, you think that it's the popular kids that you got to be friends with. And it ended up being that it was when I made an alliance with the kids who are also put down that we then were a force to reckon with. You know, you get a bunch of those kids who are all beat up, you know, who all feel alone. Those were some of my best friends through elementary school. And then in high school, we were able to kind of build a better network. And by my senior year, one of my best friends became the student body president. The other one was like the class vice president. So we were running the student body, and we were the kind of the government of the school. And we were in the show choir. So even though it was like in a lot of schools, the show choir kids would be like totally at the bottom of the rung, I think we gave it a ton of respect. And it was an opportunity to really shine, where it was like, wow, who are these kids? You know, by the end, it seemed like our class, as a school class, it was less about the cliques, because we really gelled throughout the school, because we really were all about being inclusive and trying to support each other. It's like, why do we need to keep each other down? Why do we need to be so disjointed, and, you know, help each other out, you know?
Joel, you know, the thing is, the people that in school systems that are considered the popular kids, or the bullies even, right?
Sure.
A lot of times they're the ones that are most insecure people. They're the loneliest people. And the reason they act like that is because they're insecure, right? And then the people that end up rising a lot of times are the kids that have gone through those adversities, that have been beaten down, you know? And so, yeah, that's a great story, man. And then, so as you were going through your high school years, then it became different. The show choir and that crew and everybody started, that class started to gel. And then you went on to college from there.
Yeah. In fact, let me just say, my best friends in high school, those two friends I was talking about, they were in the class government. One of them is now a senator in Idaho, and the other one is in Harmon Brothers, like the video advertising, and social media. They're both very successful. We're all doing really well for ourselves, and it's like, absolutely, the experiences that we have, definitely they build you up, and they give you a trajectory, because you've been through tough times. You actually have something that other people don't have, and it is going to allow you to kind of set your sights on, where do you want to go? What do you want to do with this?
Right.
Because you got to go get it. And now you know how to go get it, because you've been through those tough times.
If you keep going.
Absolutely.
Right? You got to keep going. You can't quit. Right.
So I went to college. I thought I was going to do psychology. And it's funny. It was actually during college that I went to an internet class for one of my required classes. Fell in love with the internet, and I saw this as like, whoa, this is what I've been looking for all my life. This is so amazing. This is the future. I attached all my skills to, you know what, it's going to be intranets, collaboration, the internet. This technology is going places, and absolutely was able to. Got my bachelor's degree in teaching social sciences. Teaching, I thought, was really going to be an important skill no matter where I ended up. And ended up in Seattle at a Netscape Oracle Sun reseller. Got a bunch of skills, and then that got me into a contract job at Microsoft.
And did you just stay as a contractor, or did you ever work under W-2 or employee role?
It's funny, like that's when the Microsoft was hiring tons of contractors at that time. And I was feeling like, hey, the contractors are being put down, you know, and the contractors ended up suing Microsoft. It's funny, but so Microsoft changed its policies. I ended up going to another, like it was the .com boom times, and I was like, I want to get stock. I just can't be working for Microsoft and not feeling equal. So I left, joined a telecom, and later came back to Microsoft as a full-time employee working in IT on a product that would later be called Sharepoint, as the first guy in operations to run this product. Ground floor, man. It was
a
great opportunity. Great opportunity. I saw it that way as well. Like, hey, this is something that if I hold on to this, I can just ride this thing. And that's what actually took me on the road. It was, I'm sitting in my office at work, lowly IT admin type job. But my boss's boss comes in and says, hey, you got a passport? There's a conference in Paris, France. We want you to speak. You're the only one who knows this stuff. And I'm like, I'll get it.
That's
And
awesome.
changed my life. That trip to Paris
What
was
year was
my
that?
first major speaking opportunity. It was my first overseas travel. And I was like, where has this been all my life? This is absolutely what I want.
What year was that?
That was in the year 2000.
In
Like
2000. Okay.
2001.
I always try to think where I was at that moment in 2000. And so SharePoint is something that our company, we're a Microsoft company at the mortgage company. I'm a division manager at Nations Lending, and we use all the Microsoft products, but SharePoint's a big tool for us. And so that's cool to know that you're like one of the ground floor of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I basically took what the product team had under their desk. I wasn't on the development team. I was in IT, which very frequently is kind of seen as, oh, those are the guys who they do the plumbing.
Right.
But I took that plumbing job essentially and was like, let me take these best practices of what we've figured out here at Microsoft and take this on the road. Let me take my social skills. Let me refine my ability to speak and blog. I started a technical blog in 2005, and I've been blogging ever since.
That's awesome.
I as well took that ability to, I knew that there's this inflection of you can travel if you have something to say and people want to hear it. So a lot of it was, let me just get my ideas out there. Let me capture these best practices. Let me share them on my blog. And I remember this one day as well. I'm working at a conference. I'm not the main speaker. I'm not even the speaker. I'm a proctor is what they call it.
Right.
Just the guy who's helping somebody with the machines. And there was this guy who says, are you Joel Oleson? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh man, I love your blog. Your blog has
Is that
saved me
great feeling or
so many
what?
times.
That's a great feeling, man. I've had that happen in Vegas for the podcast, and man, it gives me chills when you put the work and the passion and effort into that when you're sitting in your house, right? And you're doing these things that sometimes you don't think they're going to work or reach anyone, and then when somebody comes up, and so that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, and this guy was from Australia, so it just blew my mind. I'm like, what in the world? There's a guy in Australia who's learning from my blog, and it's changing his world. It's helping him with his customers. And it was probably 6 months later, somebody says to me, he's like, your blog is the Bible. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, that stuff is so good. He's like, it's gold. He's like, it's helped me out so many times just by relying on what you're saying. It's helped me out so many times. And I started to hear that over and over again. It was like so much incentive to just like, I got to keep this going. Every once in a while you get these haters. People comment and say, hey, this is junk, or this is, what have you been doing lately, and things like that. And it's like, oh man, you just got to push through.
No, well, you know what the thing is that you've been through that when you were a kid, right? But to me, I get people posting comments on a lot of my posts on Instagram, man. And I encourage those people because one, it gives me fuel, right? Remember Waymo rule number one. But the other thing is that if you're getting the haters, they're looking at your stuff, and that means you're getting attention. And that attention turns into revenue or people to help or whatever the case is. So I love it. I want more haters. I want more comments like that. Come on.
I got one experience that I don't talk about very often because it was really divisive at the time. But I had this idea. There was this program at Microsoft called the MVP program. And it kind of felt very cliquish at the time. And it wasn't very open, and people who were really stellar in the community who weren't being recognized. So I put together this blog post that was like, hey, here's what I think the community should be doing. So I kind of put some ideas out there, came up with this idea of kind of like a knight program where it's like, oh, you can be a squire and we can help you out, and then you can become a knight. Well, the current MVPs blew up, and they got all upset that, hey, here's somebody suggesting another program. And they're like, you can't do this unless you tell us what's wrong with our current program. And I knew if I put those out there, it'd be like Martin Luther posting on the wall, here's the problems with the Catholic Church. And I'm like, you know what, if I post this, I could be blacklisted. But you know what, for the good of the community, I'm going to put these out there. So I posted these 19 points to the MVP program, and I got slaughtered. It was a bloodbath. You talk about any press is good press. Oh man, I got buried. Everybody at Microsoft knew about this. They had talked to legal, and they're like, don't touch it. You know, some of these behind the scenes stories you hear. But you know what? They changed the program. It got better. It was more inclusive. A lot of the people that I was worried about that weren't being recognized, they ended up eventually kind of running the program in a lot of ways.
That's awesome.
And it was transformative.
It's about standing up for what you believe in, man, and doing the right thing. And if you really feel in your heart that that's the right thing, you got to face that backlash.
Absolutely.
And so the thing about that is it got attention again.
Yeah, it definitely got attention.
And not only for other people, but there's something that it elevated you to some point, right?
Yeah. I think there were a lot of people who were like, they were looking forward to those things I was talking about. How can we make that happen? It was so much chatter that it kind of reverberated throughout the community. But now, you know, since that time, there's probably about a 10-year hiatus where they wouldn't even look at me. I became an MVP and have definitely focused on how do we keep the community to be inclusive? How do we recognize the people who are really putting effort and muscle into this thing? And I think we're all much better for it as well.
Awesome. So let me ask you, have you met Bill Gates before?
Twice. So once was during when I was first at Microsoft as a contractor. We were talking to him about the antitrust. You know, he was actually, I was at a political magazine. It was slate.com. So all the political pundits. I've never seen somebody more fiery. Like, he was in there with just about there were about, I don't know, 7 to 10 of us, and here's these political pundits who write, and they didn't care, you know, what his response was going to be. He was so fiery, and it was coming. The passion from that man was incredible. You know, it wasn't recorded. It was just people writing. So he was just himself. And I was like, wow, this guy, he was just defending himself with so much fire. It was incredible. And then the second time, I was in SharePoint in IT, and Bill Gates had requested our team to go and talk to him to talk about what was happening with SharePoint inside of Microsoft. And my boss was kind of shaking in his shoes, like he was trying to figure out how much of his time was worth. And here I am. I was basically sitting in the row right behind him, just backing him up. We must have done that presentation a dozen times with general managers across Microsoft and VPs and stuff before we presented it. But it was incredible just to be able to see how his mind works.
Have you studied Bill? Have you studied Bill at all? Like, did you? Because I was wondering in your position if you.
We also went trick-or-treating to his office, and his wife and kids were there. So I've got to meet Melinda and the kids.
Awesome.
That was amazing.
Do you happen to know a guy named Bill Campbell, who was a business coach to a lot of people in Silicon Valley, Google founders and Apple? And I think he was involved with Microsoft at one point. He was a football coach at Columbia, and they just wrote a book about him. The guys at Google wrote a book about him called The $1 Trillion Coach. And I just read it. It just came out this year, I think, or maybe late last year. Have you heard of Bill Campbell? Okay. I didn't know. I just wanted to run that by because that's a really intriguing book. It was a little bit behind the scenes of how these CEOs and founders of these companies are coached. And the kind of guy that coached them was a football coach. And you just would have never suspected that. It was just kind of ironic.
With Ballmer, I could totally see that guy. Yeah. He's totally fired up.
Yeah, I think it was more Google and Apple, and then some with Bill, maybe. I'm not sure. But so what's an influencer in your position? What kind of influencer are you? A travel influencer, you would consider yourself?
Yeah, both. So basically, I'm a technology influencer. I'm a travel influencer. There's every passport stamp group on Facebook where a lot of these 193ers are. These people who basically are trying to go to every country in the world, or are people who have gone to every country in the world. So there's a very small community of people who are these Uber travelers. And I've been on this quest to go to every country in the world. And what's interesting about this community is there's less people who've been to every country in the world than have been to space. So we're talking like a handful of a few hundred people, most of them in the last 5-10 years. So it's a fairly smallish community. And this group on Facebook, we're kind of pulling together, hey, how do I get into this country? Does anybody have fixers? So like I've been trying to go to Syria, and I was plugged in looking at, hey, who's been there recently? How do we get in? And I got a connection who, like just recently back in probably October, November, I'm talking to this fixer to be able to try and get in. And she's like, you know, we can submit it. I'm not sure if it's going to go through, but we get all the paperwork in. And she's like, I hadn't heard from her. I'm kind of pinging her. I'm like, hey, I might need to change my plans. And she says, hey, I just got a call and you're in. And she had another group of like 5 who are not in. So it was like a small little window where Americans were able to go, and we're talking tourism in Syria in December. What an incredible, crazy trip.
How long did you go?
It was a day trip, but I was in Lebanon during the riots there. And the people in Syria were like, how was Lebanon? You know, they're more worried about what's going on in Lebanon than Beirut.
So first of all, guys, if you're listening, go to Joel Oleson on Instagram and check this page out. He's got some awesome, we got to get you more exposure, man. There's some awesome pictures here I'm looking at right now. And I mean, just go look. Joel Oleson, Oleson, and check it out, guys. And Joel, I'm going to talk to you more about getting some more exposure to this because more people need to see this. So what's your favorite country, first of all? Let's go there first.
Yeah, I love Indonesia. And let me tell you, it's actually the people. You know, you've heard in Hinduism, there's this idea of karma. People in Indonesia live karma, especially in Bali. So Bali is mostly Hindus, but they have an older flavor of Hinduism where they pray over their motorcycles. Like you'll see little flower banana leaf things on their motorcycles. Every little house has a shrine. Every city has a shrine. It's incredible the amount of, like, they just love you and they want to help you. But there's also kind of weird things like they shave off their incisors because they kind of see humans as animalistic. And so we're trying to transform from being an animal into a human. Like even their babies, it's like babies can't crawl. That's too animalistic. So they'll actually carry their babies until they can walk.
Get out, man.
There's some wild, very interesting things. And the colors there, man, the dancing and the shadow puppets and these there's like monkeys everywhere. Like the monkey temples are fantastic. The beaches, like
a buddy of mine actually went there for a 14-day vacation and stayed there. So my buddy Luca, if he's listening. But the other thing he has in the back, he has a pool and he has a temple in his pool area that other people, the people on the island go into his pool area to worship at this temple. Wow. and leave little, I guess, I don't know, they're flowers or leave.
Yeah, it's little flowers.
Yeah.
Like the different colors of the flowers mean different things. It's like
he said they come in twice a day and they'll come into his pool area and worship.
Yeah, like, wow, I believe it. It's incredible. Awesome. People are so nice. Like I was there right after the Twin Towers went down, and then there was the Bali bombing before that. And so like Bali, there was hardly anybody there when I was there. And just the people were just so humble, so nice. Just incredible experience.
So I won't ask you what the worst one or what your least favorite, because that's not right to do. But where were you the most afraid when you were there?
Most afraid.
For safety.
It was actually in Haiti. So I was in Haiti with my family, if you can believe it. We were there in Dominican Republic at an all-inclusive. And before we were going in, I was planning, I'm on this quest to go every country. So I'm planning on going to Haiti, and my wife and kids were like, well, don't leave us. We want to go. So we crossed over into Haiti and we negotiated with this driver to take us to these different places. Well, a mile later, he hops out of the car and somebody else hops into the driver's seat and drives off. And this is like, hey, stop the car. Who was that? What just happened? And we even just tried to recap what our deal was, and the guy's like, no, no, no. And we're like, yes, 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 that's the deal. So from the beginning, that trip was insane. We get to our first stop, which is like this emperor's palace from when Haiti had its revolution. It was amazing, like this emperor's palace. It's just ruins now, but it was really incredible, up near Cap Haitian. And then we're trying to go up to this citadel, and it's up in the top of the mountains. And we're like, hey, citadel next. He's like, no. And I was like, yeah, that's next on the itinerary. You agreed to this. Citadel next. He's like, no, $100. And we're like, what? It's like 2 miles on the GPS. He's like, no, $100. So we're like, you're crazy. We're done with you, you know? So we go walk through the city, and we see some taxi drivers. We're like, how much to the citadel? $100. We're like, what? Is this like some kind of mafia? What's going on? $100 to go 2 miles? This is insane. We're in Haiti. It should be maybe $2. So we find these guys on motorcycles who we negotiated down to $6 to take us to the citadel. We hop on these motorcycles. We're cruising up the hill, and out of like a bat out of hell, here comes this van trying to drive us off the road. And we're like, just go around him. It's our old driver. And he does it 3 times. I thought we were going to die. And he's screeching and kind of just trying to pull us off the road. It was nuts.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, like it was insane.
So how about the most beautiful place?
Oh, man. So many.
You got to pick one. You got to pick one.
Vanuatu, recent trip.
Where's that? I haven't heard of it.
Vanuatu is not too far from New Zealand, Tonga, Samoa. You know, it's one of those Pacific islands. And I stayed at a tree house across from a volcano. So I'm sleeping in this tree house across a volcano. At night, it's lights up the sky. It's so beautiful, so beautiful. And before the lights up, I'm going and basically hop in the back of a truck, and we cruise up to the rim of the volcano. And every 5 minutes, this volcano explodes. And I'm laying on my back, just watching.
How far away?
On the rim of the volcano. This is not far away. You're looking down. You're seeing fire in your eyes. Yeah.
How is that safe?
You sign papers ahead of time.
What the hell?
This is the most predictable volcano in the world. And it stays at a level where it's booming every 5 minutes. It's like Old Faithful, but a volcano.
So when it explodes, the lava doesn't come out or land on you or anything?
It basically, it's exploding some stuff, but not big rocks that'll hit you.
Okay.
Like when you're on your trail up, you'll see some rocks that have dates on them. Like this rock came from this date. Like, and it's because, like I said, it's very predictable. Like if it starts to heat up a little bit, they'll actually change the boundary of how close you can get.
So how about best food?
Oh, you know what? I probably would say Indonesian as well, but I do love sushi. In fact, it was actually on a trip to Japan that I'm at the Tsukiji fish market, and fresh off the boat, there's the market where they're selling the tuna. They're cruising around those little barrel looking things. And I see this fresh tuna. I'm like, you know what? I need to have the freshest tuna ever. And here's a guy who's like has some slices of it. And I'm like, hey, could I have just a little piece of that? I just want to see what fresh tuna tastes like. And he laughs and says, hey, do you want some soy sauce with that? And he carves me off, and he tells me, this is the shoulder, you know, this is the best part of the tuna. And it melts in my mouth. And I was converted to sushi. Like from that moment, I was like, wow, this is better than the best steak I've ever had. Now I understand sushi. All that junk I've had in the past doesn't matter. Now I understand it's all about quality.
I love it. That's awesome.
Converted. It was amazing. Melted in my mouth.
Now, why do you still live in California if you've traveled all these places, and there's so many places that I'm sure that you could see yourself living?
You know, it comes down to family life, but as well, I wanted to be in paradise. So everywhere I travel, I want to be able to come back. And Oceanside, California, you know, San Diego area has the best temperature all year round. You know,
Yep.
It's this kind of mid 70s temperature all year round.
Right.
It's that
So,
Mediterranean kind of
so that wins out
temperature.
then, huh?
Absolutely.
Well, Joel, listen, before we end the show, I want to give you a chance. Any final remarks or anything that you wanted to bring to the audience that we haven't covered yet? Because I know I kind of dictated by asking a lot of questions, but anything?
I do want to talk about, when you talk about what people are made of, I think travel is a cure. Travel is a cure for prejudice, bigotry. We talk about, hey, you haven't lived until you've lived in somebody's shoes. You don't understand other people. When I travel, I'm looking for local. It's not just about, hey, let's go hang out at the resort. It's, hey, I'm going to Papua New Guinea. Let me connect with a tribe. Let me see if I can actually see the eyes of what tribal warfare is through a tribe. Let me experience Africa, not just on a safari with some package tour where you're going from place to place. No, I want to see those villages. I want to see what life is like for that driver. I don't want to just go and see the animals and go home. No, no, no. I want to, hey, Omo Valley in Ethiopia, one of the most fascinating places in the world. Here's these tribes that are living in grass huts. We can actually learn a lot from them about what life was like before. And I believe, just like, the natives and their connection to the earth, we can understand a lot about what our future is going to be about if we can actually connect with these tribes, and we can understand who we are and why we do what we do. Like,
That's
I'm a
awesome.
big
Love
fan
it.
of connecting with these different tribes, these different cultures, and leave our own culture at home. Like, don't bring our culture with us. I think that's tourism is a problem in a lot of culture, in a lot of places around the
Hmm.
world. I think a lot of it is, when you go to a place, approach it with, I want to soak it up. I want to go and experience their life, not bring my life with me when I go.
Great.
It's the glamping problem, right? Where it's
Yep.
like, did you really go camping? Well, it's just kind of like with me. When you travel, if you're going to Haiti, where it's there's a big fence, and you're on the Royal Caribbean part of Haiti, you haven't seen Haiti. You've actually got to be in the streets with the people, eating off their grills, eating the Cajun food with them, being with the crowd around a tiny little TV, and being able to really just kind of see when they get excited about Carnival. I was there in Carnival when the power line had been hit.
Hmm.
I was there in Haiti during Carnival.
Man, you're like Forrest
Wow,
Gump. All
incredible.
the historical events that happened, you happen to be there.
I was there. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
No,
So,
man.
so what has it done for you though? Like a transformation or effect? What has it done for you?
It is absolutely transformational. It's there's what it does to your perspective. There's what it does when I get in a taxi, and the guy's like, "Hey, where do you think I'm from?" I'm like, Uzbekistan. He's like, blows his mind. He's like, nobody knows even what Uzbekistan it is, and you're saying you've been there. I pull up a photo and I tell him about my experiences. Immediately, I've got a connection with my taxi driver, and we're having the most amazing conversations.
That's
It's
awesome, man. I love it.
I love the ability to be able to go into a business room, and you got people from all over the world. I can connect with those people because I've been there. I know what their life is like. I can share a little bit of that, and we have an immediate connection.
That's awesome, Joel. I appreciate you being here, brother. And listen, one thing we always do on the show now too is we talk about on podcasts. A lot of us talk about what people should do and processes and strategies, but we also very rarely talk about what we struggle with and maybe what we need help with or what we've overcome as far as recently. So, what's something that you would say if you care to share that you struggle with that is something that you have to work on? Just so, because the other thing is, I always like to let people know the journey to where we are is invisible a lot of times. And if we can share that, something recent that we're struggling with or something that's going on, it makes us more human and people understand and can relate better to each other. Does that make sense?
It
So
does.
similar to traveling.
It does. And I talk about travel. One of the impacts of travel with my family has been, like, I'm a business traveler. I'm doing lots of conferences and speaking at events and things. There's the impact, what it does to your family. And so one of my kids has some bipolar, and so I've been trying to. Mental health is a big thing. I've been trying to understand it. I've got some ADD, so I've been trying to. How do I give my kids the attention they need when I've got an attention deficit problem myself? They're trying to explain something to me, and I'm probably good for 5 minutes, and he's going on for an hour. How do I figure out how to overcome that? How do I help him through his journey without my own weaknesses keeping me, from being able to connect with my kids?
No,
So
you say that, man. Again, this is all about relating. I can relate to that. I can relate to that too. I mean, I have 2 kids, and I'm doing travel as well when we're allowed to travel, and podcasting and running the mortgage company with my team. And the kids come up to me at home when I'm sitting right here, and they're like, "Hey, Dad, can you do it?" And I'm like, "No, I can't be distracted right now. I'm in my office right now." Okay. And
yeah,
it's tough. I understand where I don't really know the answer, except to maybe at times you can shut off everything, just shut off everything, and every distraction. What I always talk about when we have a goal or a vision or something that we want to accomplish in business and in our life, it should go for family as well, and relationships and spiritual and all that. You
yep,
got to remove all obstacles. So I think that I need to do it. And you bringing this up is me talking to myself here. You got to remove all the obstacles of what you want to accomplish. And that means if your work's getting in the way at the time you're supposed to be paying attention to kids, maybe I should shut everything off and really focus on my son at that time. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's my wife gets on me. She cracks on me sometimes, and I get defensive sometimes with it. But that's what we're in a relationship. That's what you should be, holding each other accountable somehow. And
yeah.
but I'm glad you brought that up, and you're vulnerable enough to say that, because that helps me out.
No, I appreciate being able to share that. I do think that mental health has all these stigmas. People don't want to talk about it, but I do think that in this world, we're going to get to this point where we actually can talk about it, and it is something we need to kind of work through. And there's a lot of these mental health issues that it's there's not like a light switch where you can just turn it off. It's like, no, we need to recognize, like, even my ADD. It's like there's no cure for this. It's like you can take medication, but people around me need to be aware of it and understand how I work so that we can connect better.
Right.
And so if we make it a stigma, and it's like, oh, I can't talk about my mental health issues, it's going to be a problem. Because if people knew what my weaknesses are, there's also strengths. Man, when I get focused on something, I can go deep. So I actually try and find these places where I can block out time to focus on things, and and
And
especially with this
then remove all
COVID-19
obstacles.
times.
And then you have to remove all obstacles.
Remove all the obstacles, absolutely. And let me just go deep. And like, even your family relationships too, it's like, let me turn off the tech. My kids are always complaining about me being on my phone. It's like, all right, let's turn off the tech, let's spend some family time. And vacations can actually be good for that too. Like, hey, let's, that trip you've been talking about, let's turn it all off and let's go on that cruise, or do your Hawaiian trip, or whatever.
Well, Joel, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, man. I appreciate you. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, all you got to do is reach out. I'm very easy to get a hold of. I don't know what I can help you with, but if there's anything,
Yeah.
never
Let me
hesitate.
just mention travelingepic.com is my travel blog. Collabshow.com is my tech blog. I started a recent podcast series, kind of a webisode thing on YouTube. You just search for Baby Penguin Man. You'll find me on YouTube.
Baby Penguin
But
Man. All right.
Baby Penguin Man.
All right.
And I started this webisode series on top destinations to dream about. And so here we are in COVID-19. You might not be able to travel right now, but you can definitely start planning big trips. So I've already covered Antarctica, because I had these amazing baby penguin videos that you just got to see, where they're pecking my eyes and one's on my chest.
I'm gonna
Crazy
watch. I'm gonna
videos.
watch it with the kids tonight.
Yeah,
Check it out.
totally do it. And then the other one's me in Papua New Guinea with these tribes, where we went to this funeral, putting mud all over our face and kind of walking through the town.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
The Sing Sing with like hundreds of different tribes doing their thing, all in full makeup, war
Baby
gear.
Penguin Man on YouTube. You hear that,
Baby
Jen?
penguin man. Got it.
All right, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Guys, you've been listening to the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy, Mike C-Roc. Thanks to Joel Oleson for joining us. And guys, just a reminder, please go subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube channel. You can watch these at Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco. And also just be aware that we have the Waymo Crew coaching group always running, where we coach businesses on how to build their people, how to build culture, and how to bring in more money into the business, which it's all about. So I appreciate all of your help with spreading the word of the Waymo movement, all of your support. And until next time, I'm your boy, C-Roc.